so great to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute after the show today.
My pleasure.
So, before we get into your work, I want to know this. 5 years ago, this pandemic was changing all of our lives, everything that we're doing. How did you get through that pandemic era, and how has it changed the way that you operate and do things today?
I think it's been a insane shift, both sort of from a lifestyle perspective as well as just an awareness perspective. So my first daughter was born a month before the pandemic lockdown started, the very first lockdown. And at the time, I didn't have much of an idea of what was to come. And to be honest, we were just happy to have a newborn in our hands, and we were spending all our time making sure she was okay and everything. And then a month later, the entire world shut down. We had to quarantine, windows and doors locked, and all these ideas we had about, going to the park or taking walks on the beach, everything was out the window. All of a sudden, it was about being protected and making sure that that our baby was safe. And a blessing in disguise, I'd like to say, was the fact that all the companies decided to do a work from home policy. And I feel that without that, I probably wouldn't have had the bond and the time with my daughter that I did. And for that, I'm very grateful. Um, the other shift I feel that happened because of the pandemic was just this sense of being very aware of what my priorities are in life and where I want to spend my time and energy. Because there was a point in the pandemic where, at the time I was in the US, I was actually in San Diego. And there was a point where all the airports shut down. And this was both um, scary and alarming because our folks, both my wife and my parents, were back in India. And previously, we always had the comfort that, should we need to visit them, or, if they needed any support, we'd just be a flight away. And now there was no way we could do anything. And that brought about a sense of awareness, like what are we really prioritizing in our lives? And the second part was like, you probably have only one chance at living this life to its fullest. So how are you going to make that count, and how are you going to make a difference both in your own life as well as the lives of people around you? So that has been the major thing that surfaced, if I'm being honest, over the pandemic era.
So, let's get into exactly what you do on a daily basis as both an author and an AI expert. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of 12-year-olds in a grade school. It's career day. One of the kids wants to know what you do for a living. How do you answer them?
So by day, I teach machines to understand humans better and learn to help us with a number of things in our day-to-day lives. And by night, I teach humans to understand machines better so that they can get more done uh, out of um, their lives and focus on the things that really matter to them. At the end of the day, I am a translator between humans and machines.
So, what did you want to be when you were 12 years old? What was your dream job?
I would actually say my dream job at one point when I was a kid was being a paleontologist. I was really fascinated with dinosaurs. And the second career option I really had was to be an artist. Some kind of painter, and neither of those came to fruition, but that's all right. One thing that did stick is my appreciation for images and videos and science. So I guess I got the best of both of those in the sense that now I get to work on science and I get to visually explain it to people.
So, what were the foundational elements growing up that allowed you, that gave you this love of art and ultimately technology and AI and science? What were those seeds that were planted?
My parents used to take us on a lot of vacations, and we'd always carry along a film camera, a Kodak camera. and more often than not, I'd make a play for it. I'd grab it from their hands and I'd take a lot of pictures. I've burned through my fair share of film, and most of those pictures were not worth much and didn't develop into anything meaningful. But it gave me the appreciation of how it was possible to capture moments in time and just preserve it for eternity. That is how I got my interest in visuals, and then I used to draw a lot of doodles and comics when I was young because we had these programs on TV that I used to watch. Like there used to be this channel called Cartoon Network.
Yeah.
I'm probably giving away a bit of my age, but there were quite a few shows there that were fascinating, both from like the plot perspective, but also like how beautifully things were illustrated and things were animated. That was the seed for the art side. For the science side, as I mentioned, I was really fascinated with dinosaurs and nature. And a lot of my family members used to buy encyclopedias and similar books for me to read as a kid. And I really enjoyed reading and understanding as much as I could. So over the years, that interplay has always lingered and led to a career where I now could focus on making machines understand the world from pictures and video.
So, who's been kind of an inspiration for you in your life as far as your career and finding your avenue with, writing and AI and even art? Who's been that for you?
So it's actually been a number of people over the years, if I'm being honest. So at the very outset, it's definitely my dad, who sort of inspired this curiosity in me. Like, let's try to do new things and find out how things work, or let's see how good we are with something, and let's always give something new a shot. There's been times where I've read books from Bill Bryson, like a short history of nearly everything. There's been books on I think I don't remember the authors exactly, but there were these books on science, illustrated books from Scholastic, the publishing house, and I don't remember the authors, but they were a huge inspiration for me, like to try to draw the same thing and try to explain the same things. And then, as far as imagery was concerned, as far as like things like photography were concerned, there were quite a few people. There's, of course. Um, Ansel Adams, Galen Rowell, Mark Adamus. There's been a few people who've inspired me there. And then more recently, in terms of AI, it was actually another Indian, Pranav Mistry. He's now CEO of a company, I think it's called 2.ai or something like that. And I saw a video of his when I was just wrapping up my undergrad. And the kind of things he was doing back so many years ago was just like science fiction for me, and I wanted to get an understanding of how that was possible, and that's what led me into a path of AI. And then in terms of writing, over the years it's been many people. Like I said, Bill Bryson still is, for me, a huge inspiration. Then in recent times, there is a mathematician, Ben Orlin, who writes wonderful articles about math and has these really quirky doodles that go along with them. So he's both funny and educational. There is Mary Roach, I think America's favorite science writer, and definitely, I'm probably forgetting a few more people, but it's sort of been a mix of people who have inspired me so far.
So, as we dig a little bit further into AI, I want to know about your book, AI for the Rest of Us. Give me kind of an overview, what you were going for. How does it feel to put this out into the world?
Sure. So, AI books, they fall into two broad categories. And there is a third category that I will not be talking about. Those are the ones where it's about predictions of the future or the implications of AI on society, ethics, and those kinds. The two categories I'm talking about are the ones that teach you about AI, how it works. So they either fall into the category of you are a software engineer or somebody who knows how to code. And so I will explain AI to you through code. So I will write a whole bunch of programs in the book and explain how they work. And through the code, you learn how AI works. And then there's the second variety, which is heavily mathematical, where you come from a background of statistics and math, and you have an appreciation for that kind of language. So they are heavily based on derivations and equations and that kind. And there are clear-cut audiences for both. Now there's a messy middle where there are a whole bunch of people who work in tech in general, in the tech industry, who come from neither background. They're probably from a business background. That may be founders, entrepreneurs, maybe they are decision makers and managers, but they have to deal with this technology every single day. And the biggest disconnect that I've seen working in this industry, both as an engineer and now as an engineering leader, is that when business talks to engineering, they are talking in terms of ROI, P&L, and trying to make sense of, how does this help our business do better? And they don't understand the technical feasibility or infeasibility of something. Now, on the engineering side, it's all about how can I make this idea a reality through engineering, through code, through innovation. But oftentimes, there are constraints that you can't get past for whatever reason. This could be due to resources, this could be just the technical constraints that are there on the problem. And when these two are trying to speak to each other, there's a huge disconnect. And there's nothing that teaches the business side how AI works without dumbing things down, as far as I could tell. And that's the gap that I wanted to address. So this book is all about explaining AI in plain English, without using a single equation, without writing a single line of code, and using illustrations to explain how various AI algorithms work so that these decision makers who are grappling with this technology have the tools to understand whether something works or not and speak more effectively with their engineering teams. And conversely, for the engineering teams, this serves as a translation guide for them to say why something can or can't work or what the best option is for solving a particular problem that the business side has.
So I got a question for you.
Mhm.
Um, there's all of these different. I think there's a lot of people that don't understand how AI works, which is why this book's brilliant, breaking that down, and people can see things. Visuals are a big deal. But the one thing that gets me about AI, there's a couple of things, but I work in technology. I'm an IT
Mhm.
technician by day, and we always heard about Moore's law. Technology duplicates itself over a set amount of time, but that's shattered now with AI. AI
Yeah.
every day is running through unbelievable levels of growth. How can
Yeah.
people wrap their heads around how fast this technology is running?
I guess it's exploded much more rapidly than any of us truly imagined, if I'm being honest. But behind this explosion, there's been almost 70 to 80 years of work leading up to it. So the first seeds of AI were probably planted 1940, 1930, thereabouts. But back then, you didn't have the hardware needed to run models like neural networks that we do today. And you also didn't have the volume of data available to us for training these models so that they could understand patterns and solve problems. That only happened around 2012 when there was this very large data set that was curated by a team at Stanford led by Dr. Fei Li. And they proved that with enough data, these models that were invented way back in the 40s and 50s could actually solve problems at a scale that was unprecedented compared to the prior work that existed. And that was the spark really that led to this explosion. And since then, it's been nonstop because the barriers that were holding this back, like the compute needed to run these models, the data needed to run these models. I mean, let's think about it, right? The amount of data available on the internet is staggering.
Yeah.
And now you have this volume of data, you have the compute needed to train these models and have them run effectively. The conditions were ripe. So it was not a surprise that for those who have been in the field for a very long time, it's not a surprise that it's taken off. But what has been surprising, at least for me personally, is the rate at which it's continuing to evolve, the rate at which progress is continuing. And I don't think any of us predicted that it would be this rapid. So for people grappling with the rate of progress, I just say it's okay. It's all right to be a little frazzled, because but even people in the field are quite honestly frazzled by how fast things are moving.
So let me ask you this. I know that people talk about the fear of AI, of what it can do and where it can go. What's your bead on kind of the general nature of AI and where it can go?
So, as with any technology, this can go in the direction that humanity chooses to take it. And it's really down to us to figure out which ways to go. For example, you take something like AlphaFold, which is this model that a team at Google DeepMind um, came up with. It's helping scientists solve protein folding, and that's critical for finding cures to diseases that have been plaguing mankind. If you ask me, that's a great direction to go and invest in. And on the other hand, you have use cases that are more for um, just stat padding and making, sort of planting a flag saying, I'm the first to do something. And spending the amount of money, resources, and time on that is a pursuit not worth going for. And then there's another category that is equally bad, which are these deep fakes where you see, um, you know, videos of real people saying or doing things that they actually never did or said in real life. But it's so convincingly real that it's very hard to tell truth from fiction. And that's definitely a direction not to pursue.
Yeah.
And sort of an undercurrent to all of this is that these AI models that we work with today are very energy consuming, very resource consuming, and any initiatives that we take comes with the cost of us affecting the climate, affecting, you know, like for example, data centers, they need water to cool the machines that run these models, and that water has to be purified. It has to be clean water, it can't be salt water because that would corrode the pipes, for example. Where do you think that water comes from? Like, whose drinking water is going for that? Or if you need electricity to power these data centers, it's not going to come from renewable sources at the moment, because the amount of electricity needed is significant to run these data centers. So every initiative that we're taking with AI comes at a cost, and it's up to us to figure out where to divert those efforts and what problems to solve, because it's a tool in our hands, and it's the choice is really ours to decide which way we want to use the tool.
So, what is it that gets you up every day to do this work that you do, to do it at a high level, to take care of your soul, your family? What is that for you?
For me, it's just this delight of finding how things work. It's always been the case since I was a kid. And this challenge of trying to make computers understand the world around us, whether that's through text, whether that's through understanding images or videos, which to these machines is just raw data. It has no meaning for us. When we look at a beautiful sunset, we look at the colors, we feel something when we see it. Like the sky is literally on fire. You see, so many beautiful things in front of you, and your brain's processing all of this, and you feel something. Whereas you take a picture of that and you give it to a machine, it's just bits and bytes. It has no context of the beauty or the emotions associated with something like that. And just being able to figure out, is there a way for us to help them understand the gravity of how we um, perceive things? For me, that's what gets me up.
So, of everything that you've accomplished up to this point in your life and become, what are you the proudest of?
That's a tricky question. um, I would say that it's it's probably my I'd say it's probably my first job, because when I got my first job, I had moved to a new country. I was away from my family. I was in unfamiliar surroundings, and I worked harder than anyone I knew, and there was no guarantee that I was going to succeed. So the odds were definitely up against me. And to be able to prove to myself and to my family that I could actually do it, and I could um, do something meaningful, break into an industry that I really wanted to, and do it on my own terms without um, any kind of external factors influencing things. I think that for me is probably the proudest achievement.
So everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, everyone that gets your book, everyone that knows you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
At the heart, I would say that I'm still the same curious kid I was when I was 6, trying to understand new things, understand science, and then share the joy of understanding and discovery with everybody around me. And I would say that I'm just an explorer.
So if you could get into a time machine and go either into the future or into the past, where would you go?
Hmm. And this is to do what?
You could just see an event. Maybe you could
Hmm.
see one event in human history in the past, or you could see where AI and humanity goes, let's say 20 years from now.
I would actually go into the past,
Yeah,
and I would love to see um, the the era around where Michelangelo and Picasso and all of those amazing artists lived, and just to see how they went about creating things. I think for
yeah,
me that would be incredible.
that would be cool. So, AI for the Rest of Us is your new book. If anybody wants to reach out, they want to learn more, any of the good business in your world, where do they go?
So you can find me on LinkedIn at Sairam Sundaresan. You can also find me on X and YouTube, the same name. My Substack is Gradient Ascent, and if you want to learn about the latest advancements in AI, written in a very accessible language and doesn't threaten, please check it out. And of course, find my new book on any website or place where books are sold.
Excellent. I will put all these links in the show notes. What a joy. Thank you so much for your story. Thank you for your wisdom. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.